Welcome to the Getting Real with Hilary show, where ordinary heroes tell extraordinary stories during unique and never been heard before conversations with your host, Hilary Arno Burns. Hilary's unique listening and way of asking questions results in conversations that aren't usually talked about, so you can create the life that you really want but are afraid you can't really have. We are demonstrating the greatness in the human spirit and creating a world where we all reclaim our birthright of joy, happiness, purpose, and passion. Now, here's your host, Hilary Arno Burns. Welcome to the Getting Real with Hilary show, and today we have a very special guest. His name is Rei Vardi. He is an entrepreneur, a business owner, and a CEO, and you are going to love his story. I love it. I can't stop thinking about it. All right. Welcome, Rei.
Hey, what's going on, Hilary? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to tell your story. Okay. So, but before you get into the good stuff about what happened with the car in college, don't tell them. Where did you grow up? How many brothers and sisters did you have, and all that good stuff, so we can place you? Yeah.
Sure. So I was born in Israel, and I moved to the States with my family when I was around 4 years old.
Okay.
We moved because my dad wanted to get his master's degree in plastics engineering, then moved to California where he had a job there. I have two siblings, so a brother and a sister, both younger. And basically I grew up most of my life in California, like on the outskirts of LA, kind of bouncing around, between school year was in California, and then summers I'd always spend with the rest of the family back in Israel. So that's the origin story. After high school, I went to Boston for school. I was studying biomedical engineering at BU. And I guess that's where the story starts, let's say.
All right, hold everything. Okay, so when you went to Israel, so you didn't have to be in the army because you were only there on summers?
That's correct. Yeah, I wasn't counted as a resident, so I wasn't obligated to be drafted.
Did you want to be?
Yeah, honestly,
you wanted.
This was
wow.
Yeah, this is. I actually guess I never talked about this with anyone. It's when I was finishing high school. There's really kind of an identity crisis that I was going through, because it was like, my all my family had served in the military, obviously, including to this day, my cousins, my my nephew, like a second cousin removed, third cousin removed, like everybody, right? And actually, my family has kind of a very decorated history, going back several generations. My dad was a captain in the Navy. My mom was a commander of artillery. Both my grandparents are actually regarded national heroes. There's a lot of history there. So when I kind of finished my high school career, it was kind of clear to me that I'm going to go back and do the same thing that my parents and grandparents and everybody before them did, and I thought I'd be a pilot. And I was pretty gung-ho about, I'm not going to go to school yet. I'm going to do 3 years in the army, just like everyone else. But of all people, it was actually my dad who was very, very against it. He pushed really hard for me to not go back and instead, start my life and start my career. And it was.
Do you know why? I mean, to keep you safe, or?
Well, no, it wasn't that. Like back, we're talking about like almost 10 years ago now. Back then it was, or more than 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it wasn't nearly as scary. We all thought that we had kind of entered into a new era where things are a lot safer and there's less conflict. That was definitely not the case today, right? But that was kind of the feeling back then. And there was kind of this feeling of like, it's kind of just a waste of time. Like everybody has to do it. And, you just kind of want to start with your life. Why get dragged down for 3 years? And concurrently, my dad he sat me down one day and he was just like, look, here's the case, man. Like my dad, my grandfather on my dad's side, he was killed when my dad was 6 years old. It was during the Yom Kippur War. So my dad grew up without a father. He was practically an orphan growing up on the kibbutz, right? And
Where
our
was
dad,
his
he
mom?
he kind of studied down.
Wait, where was his mom?
Well, she was around, but the way that it was kind of organized, as soon as his dad was killed, she moved to the city to kind of, you know, uh, find a new husband. And so there was a period there where he was really kind of like raised by the rest of the community, right?
She left him at the kibbutz.
This was, believe it or not uncommon, and this was
Right,
not
but I
like
mean, that's what she did. Yeah. So he was
yes.
there without his mother. Wow.
My dad fought and died in war, so that I could fight and die in business, so you can fight and die in the arts. Like this is what we want. This is everything that we worked for and sacrificed for and gave up for, is so that you have opportunities that we didn't. And when it came from him in that way, it was very real. It's like there's always these kind of cliches that you hear people say, of saying, oh yeah, I sacrifice everything for my kids, but this was real. And it just kind of made me kind of take a look at everything that I had and realize that it wasn't because I just got lucky. People fought very, very hard to give me an opportunity in America to get a head start in my life. And it felt, again, especially back then, when there wasn't this sense that it was a major sacrifice. It was more a sense of like, you're just going to spend three years in boot camp kind of twiddling your thumbs, right? That was the perception then. It just kind of made me realize that the best way I can honor my parents' legacy with this decorated history is to take advantage of the opportunity that they fought to give me. So the decision went, let's go to college.
I have one question back to the plastics. When your
Yes.
dad went to get, was it a master's in plastics? Was that because of the movie The Graduate? That's what I just
I don't even think he knows what that movie is,
because
to this day.
in the movie, one of the guys is like, plastics, got to get back, you got to get in plastics. I'm like, why would you move from Israel to get a master's in plastics? I mean, do you know what was behind that?
Well, he wanted an advancement in his career, and he felt that he wasn't moving fast enough in Israel.
So, okay. But
he worked at a plastic factory before.
Oh, okay. So that's cool. I just had to ask. So he never went back. Your parents never went back, right?
No, I mean, we visit all the time, like 2-3 times a year.
Stayed here. Wow.
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. All right. Keep going. All right. So you decided not to go to the army. Go back. So.
Yes. No. So I went to school for biomedical engineering. At that point, my dad had graduated from plastics to medical engineering, and started working at a pharma. And it only kind of hit me like after college that I went to study the same thing my dad was doing. But yeah, that was the goal. Like I went to school thinking that there'd be some sort of biomedical engineer, a doctor, a researcher, somewhere like that. My whole childhood, I had this vision that I'd be my eventual life purpose was to be a scientist. That was that was like from an early age. Anyone will tell you that's what I wanted.
So when he said, sorry, I know I keep interrupting, but when he said he's fighting and dying in business, you're to fight and die in arts. Is that what you mean by that? By being a scientist? Or
to him, to say fighting and dying in the arts is fighting and dying in whatever catches your fancy.
Okay.
Like whatever it is that you care about.
Okay.
Because he didn't go into plastics because he's in love with plastic.
Okay, I see.
It's because that's where the opportunity is.
So he was giving you the next level up, which is do
Correct.
what you want, not what you think you should do. Right? Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
So school was going great. It was fine. The only thing is, classes were really hard. It was biomedical engineering is not as, it's a little bit more challenging, I'd say, than some other majors.
Yeah.
They were throwing the book at me. I was struggling a little bit, but I managed to get through pretty much okay. At a certain point, two things converged at the same time. One, my dad was moving out of California to Chicago for a job offer there. And at the time, he'd had this insanely cool Tesla Model S, like one of the first Teslas that came out, Um, and when I first kind of got my hands on this thing, I was like blown away.
You were in love.
Man, this is crazy. This is so cool, This thing drives itself. It accelerates so fast. It's electric. I mean, it's everything about it was so cool, so high tech, And I just love this thing. So he was gonna sell it. He was gonna, give it up because he didn't need it where he was going, and I was just not gonna let that happen. So I sat him down. I'm like, Dad, listen, I've got an idea. Give me the car. I'll find a way to pay you back. What's the monthly on it? 800. I think it was between 800 or $1,000 a month. I was like, oh, okay, I'll figure out how to come up with that every month. We got it over to Boston, and I became basically the owner of this car, which was a dream for me. The problem is that I had no way to pay for it. I realized I got to start paying for this car, right? So I'm like, you know what? I've got an idea. I'm going to rent this thing out, and if I rent it out, not only is it going to help with the payment, but maybe it'll even make me some money, and then I'll have some cash on the side. Like, how cool is that? Like, I get a car and money. That's the way it should go, right? And I started renting it out, and just like almost immediately, I realized that I was in just a pile of turds. Like I was in way over my head, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I was like, oh my God, this is a disaster. Right. Within easily the first 2 weeks, I just realized that I had this kind of sinking feeling that I screwed up, Well, here's the thing, it's like, you've got this concept in your head.
Wait, how much were you charging?
Oh, I was charging enough, like maybe
for a ride or for the day? Like, how did
No, for the day. For the day, I was charging like between 160 to $200 a day. It was a premium. It was a good price.
Oh, that you could make it back in a week. Yeah, go ahead.
Not that bad, right? I was like, this could work,
Yeah.
And so I put together a website. I threw it up. I got some help from people around to like help me build my first website. But then what you think, what you've got in your head is like, okay, I'm gonna take this car and I'm gonna share it. I'm gonna share my car. That's not actually what ends up happening. What ends up happening is that you become the world's tiniest car rental company with no idea what you're doing. Right?
No insurance.
Because
did you have insurance?
Well, I did have insurance, amazingly, but it was really, I could get into the details of how I got that insurance. It was a bit shall we say, risky. It wasn't like fully covering all instances. And there was all this kind of, there was a lot of loopholes that could have gotten really screwed up.
Okay. All right.
But I start renting out this car, and I realized like why being a car rental company absolutely sucks. It's because you essentially have this extremely expensive asset that you're giving off to a stranger, and you're hoping that they do the right thing, and the analogy I always use is it's like handing someone a gun, and just saying like, hey, promise me you know how to use this gun. Okay, great. Promise me you'll bring it back on time. Okay, great. Promise me you won't shoot anyone. Okay, great. Promise me you won't damage the gun. Okay, great. That's what it is, right?
Did you have
because you're giving someone.
Yeah.
You have a contract. That doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Contract is. Let me explain what happens. Right. Somebody signs a contract. Okay. They go and they crash your car, right? And then they disappear, and like doesn't matter. Like they don't have the money to pay for it, or they're unwilling to pay for it. Okay. Well, you could take them to court, right? Assuming that you have the correct information for that human being. You take them to court. Okay. A year later, you might have a judgment against them. Okay. You present them with the judgment, assuming you're even able to get it over to them.
Yeah.
Okay. They don't respond, or they don't have the money, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Good luck. Like in the meantime, you've wasted a year to 2 years trying to chase after someone who you can't get anything from, not to mention that they could do an unbelievable amount of damage. That person could take that car, take it to Mexico, disappear. They could crash it. They could, they could hurt somebody else. They could kill someone,
Oof.
And then and that partly you have partial responsibility because you handed them that car. It's a huge risk, right?
All right. On that note, because I know you have specific stories too, we're going to take our commercial break and come right back. So don't go away because you won't believe what happened. Right? All right.
Yes.
After a word from our sponsors. Be right back.
What if school could be a place where every child feels safe to be themselves? Right now, kids are growing up in a complicated world. They're learning how to listen, how to care, and how to find their voice. Kokori's daily digital calendar of research-backed lessons helps children build confidence, empathy, and resilience through joyful play-based learning. When children feel connected and supported, they don't just learn more, they grow into kinder, braver humans. Kokori, helping kids grow together.
Hey, it's Hilary from the Getting Real with Hilary show. Life can be messy, raw, and real. And sometimes we're afraid to feel vulnerable. We're afraid to be that real self. Well, that's exactly what the Getting Real with Hilary show and Getting Real movement is all about. Being our true selves. Every week, I bring you stories of transformation, authenticity, and hope. People getting real with their struggles, their faith, and their breakthroughs. So don't miss a thing. Subscribe to my weekly newsletter today. You'll get stories, links to everything new, and how to create a life you love every week directly to your inbox. You can also find my books on Amazon. My courageous and riveting memoir, The Second Piece of French Toast, in case you feel stuck in your life and want to get inspired. How I came out about my no sex life and my marriage, and my second book, Real Talk. That one will get you speaking up in ways you've been too afraid to do so, and really creating amazing freedom. And my third book, How to Stop Fixing Yourself and Start Having Fun, the name is called Your Bullshit is Your Blessing. Find links to everything and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Getting Real with Hilary, and you'll find the links in the header. So, visit. And you can also visit gettingrealwithhilary.com because the real you is worth it and wants to come out. What if spiritual transformation didn't have to feel confusing or out of reach? When I met Dr. Kay Narayan, a spiritual teacher and healer, what struck me most wasn't just his presence. It was how simple he made something that can feel so complex. In his book, Spiritual Transformation, 12 Steps to Freedom, Joy, and Your Highest Life, he breaks it down into a clear, step-by-step process. So you're not just inspired, you actually know what to do. This isn't about rare experiences or abstract ideas. It's practical, it's logical, and it's written in a way that just makes sense. And what I experienced myself was a feeling of lightness, of ease, of finally understanding. If you've been searching for something deeper, but want it to feel real and accessible, this is for you. You can get a free copy of his book right now. Just cover shipping and handling. The link is below, because the life you're looking for might be simpler than you think. Have you tried diet after diet and workout after workout, only to be frustrated by the lack of results? What if you had a coach who created a plan specifically for your body, your goals, and your lifestyle? Meet Kayvon Bu of Hammer Fitness. Kayvon helps people lose body fat, build lean muscle, and transform their bodies through personalized fitness coaching, customized nutrition plans, and ongoing adjustments as their bodies change and adapt. The results speak for themselves. Just look at these incredible client transformations. If you're ready to stop guessing and start seeing results, contact Kayvon Bu today on Instagram at kayvon.bu or by phone at 437-774-5688. Your transformation starts with one decision. Make it today.
And thank you to all of our sponsors. You saw their commercials and you see their logos. And Ray is a new sponsor, so you're going to see his logo soon. And we're going to finish the rest of the story. Wait till you hear what happened. So tell us some of those stories about what happened.
Well,
The bank,
some of them are kind
robbing
of,
a bank.
you know, yes. So basically within like my first month of renting out this car, somebody rented it and used it to rob a bank, So the crazy thing is the car comes back on time. It's clean. There's no big issue, And then I get a call from, the police come knocking on my door. My dorm, I should even say, because it was like literally I'm in school and like all my roommates see the cops come in, basically go, like, hey, you Rei Vardi? Yes. I was like, well, your car was involved in a bank robbery. Please come with us. So it was like just a complete disaster, I
So
had
you didn't get in trouble, right? Or did you?
no, I mean it was pretty easy to prove that
Yeah.
I wasn't at the car with the car at the time and that it was rented out. It was annoying, but it was and a bit scary, but everything was fine.
Okay.
I had situations where people would call me up in the middle of the night. I'd wake up to have to answer the phone. I was always in this kind of anxiety of like,
Ugh.
what's going on with the car? Where are they driving to? Are they going to bring it back? It was I remember I had a date with this girl that I was like head over heels for like months. I was like, oh man, how nice would it be to go out with her, right? And finally, like I summon up the courage and I ask her out. We go to do dinner and drinks, and it's going so well. And then at like 10:30 at night, like at the peak of like us like just having a great time, really getting to know each other, I get a call from my renter, and it's February. He's with the car in the woods somewhere in New Hampshire. The car's out of battery. He can't get a hold of anybody to help him. There's no heat, he's freezing, and he's like, listen, I need you to help me. Otherwise, I don't know, I might freeze to death out here, So
So what'd you do?
I had to I was like, hey, excuse me for a sec. I'll step outside. Got to take care of something,
Did you have another car to go get him in?
No, it's not even that. I didn't have another car. I'm trying to call up tow companies to go and pick him up. He's 4 hours away, I'm
Oh god.
so I'm like calling, I'm basically stepping outside for 30 minutes, coming back like, hey, I'll be right back. 30 minutes. Long story short, like that's the end of the date. Like, and she kind of goes home pretty pissed off that I ignored her for the whole second half. And, there wasn't a second date. And it was just like,
Did she know what was going on? Did you tell her?
I explained, but it was also embarrassing. It's like, it's like,
Oh.
okay, so you have this car and like now you're entirely like, oh, okay, I guess you're dating this car and it's not me or whatever it is, it's like it's not what she said. That's like my own perception of how I felt about it. It's like, so it was a whole, like, it just, this thing started taking over my life. I was skipping classes to hand it off. Like I was like taking breaks at work to go and answer people, it was not good. It was just a huge waste. Anyway,
So what happened?
all of this came together and I was like, this was going on. I hated this stupid car. I owed my dad a bunch of money. I wasn't making my payments on time. The car was getting beat up, and at work at the hospital, I was just like, this just absolutely sucks. And so I said, okay, I'd graduated. I wasn't continuing at the hospital anymore because I was just so upset about it. And I kind of realized that I didn't. Yeah. And I kind of realized that. Yeah. And I also had this kind of realization that I'm like, I don't even think I'm that good at biomedical engineering. Like I got through it because I put in a ton of work, but if this is what the rest of my life looks like, I don't think what's the point,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I felt really like I was a bit lost, and I was a bit kind of ashamed too, because, my parents put me up to go to school for this degree at enormous cost. And, and this was like their gift to me. And here I am, like, I don't even like this, and crap, what am I going to do about this?
Yeah.
So I decided to take a bit of a gap and just like figure it out before rushing into master's program or rushing into a job or whatever it was. And I was like, you know what? This stupid car has cost me so much like sanity and health. Let's fix this first. Like, let's fix a small problem first so that I don't have to worry about the stupid car anymore, and then I continue with my actual career. And so I had a goal. I was like, I just want this thing to run itself. Can this thing just pay for itself and take me out of the equation? If so, then I think that's the first thing I should focus on. And I kind of realized, like, okay, I'm also never going to be this young again. And I'm also never going to have this few responsibilities again. Like as we continue on in life, like the number one thing you're going to accumulate is obligations. I'm going to have a mortgage. I'm going to have a wife and kids at some point,
Yeah.
There's never going to be an opportunity where I could just be like, let's just figure this out at the cost of everything else, So let's just do it. And I started to realize that like the problem was not in renting the car. The problem was actually that there's a fundamental risk in sharing assets like cars. And if I want to solve this problem, I have to solve the sharing problem. If I can solve that, if I can make it, first of all, safe, so I don't have people robbing banks in the cars. And second of all, if I can make it so that like I take away this constant 24/7 work and being on call, if I could do that, then this is something that will actually work. And by the way, if it works, maybe I can even scale it. Maybe I can even get 2 or 3 cars and, just try this out before I continue the next thing, So I set to work on that. And the first thing I needed was a partner. I needed someone who could do some code and some software development because this was only going to be solved via software. And one of the cool things about this Tesla that kind of got me so excited about in the first place is that it's basically a computer on wheels, right? And so if it's a computer on wheels, that means we can kind of program systems in and around it. And maybe, just maybe, I can solve these two issues of how do I make it safe and how do I make it not 24/7 inconvenient. And if I can engineer the car to do that work for me instead of me, maybe that's the solution, right? So I bring on this guy who's a friend of a friend. I'm introduced to him as, this is one of the most brilliant minds and software engineers, like basically of our generation, right? A friend of a friend, like intros him and he's like, look, he already built and sold his first company. He's working as a professor at our school afterwards as kind of like an associate professor, like right out of college. Guy's a genius, I'm like, okay, well, how do I get this guy on board? I don't have any money to pay him. I don't have any way to make this work. So I kind of noticed that he's the type of dude who's really into perks. Like through a couple of meetings and hanging out a couple of times, I noticed he's the guy that kind of like what speaks to him. And I think a lot of people are like this actually secretly. It's not so much money. It's much more the feeling of having special access, He's like, like in the old mafia movies where it's like the Don comes into the restaurant and they're like, of course, Don Giorno, whatever. Like, we've cleared the table. We saved you the best seat. You always have a place here, and they kick everyone out of the restaurant so that you could have your private dinner, right? That's the kind of stuff that, people love. So I'm like, okay, well, so I made him a deal. I was like, listen, I just want to get to this point with the cars. I want like a first basic system to automate a lot of this work. If we get to that, I will give you, free access to cars for your entire life as long as this business is operating.
Wow.
Anytime you need a car, just get it and go. It's yours. And he's like, okay, deal. So we get to work. We start building this out. And, over the course of the next 2 years, we are crunching away and building a system to automate the rentals. And I'm not going to lie, the system was buggy. It was clunky. It crashed often.
Were you actually renting cars at this point or no?
Yeah. I grew from 1 car to 4 cars. And then And then something kind of cool happened.
And
which
they were
is
all electric, right? You were
all
doing
Teslas.
all Teslas.
Exactly.
Okay. Wow.
And
So you were making money. You were
it
able
was
to pay. Yeah.
very slowly the business was growing, and things were going well. And like at a certain point, people in the community in Boston started reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, can you rent out my car as well? I'd like to make some money on my car." I was like, "Oh, okay, this could be interesting."
Teslas? All Teslas?
Yes, all Teslas,
Wow.
right? So then this kind of concept becomes, wait a second, if I can solve the sharing problem for myself, I can solve it for a lot of people. And if we solve it for a lot of people, that has actually an incredible amount of value, because you're taking a car, an asset that's really essentially a liability. It's just burning money. It's losing money every day that it's sitting in your garage. If you could turn that car into something that pays you back, there's an enormous amount of value for people all over the place for this. So then the focus became, let's turn this into a platform.
Oh.
And my partner was like, okay, yeah, this sounds great. Let's go big, right? We start building it out in Boston, enter the New York market, LA market. But we realized that, this is still very much an extremely clunky, very amateur operation with two guys. If we want this to succeed, we need to raise capital. We need to start building a real business. And then, and my partner says, at this point, he goes, "Hey, I've got an issue. My school visa is about to expire. I'm going to need sponsorship, I'm like, oh, crap. Okay. Turns out there's he could get sponsorship in Canada. But long story short, we went from being able to pay him in perks to now I have to pay something like $13,000 a month for a third-party company to hire him and sponsor him.
Oh,
and
God.
rent his workout back to me. It was like a whole convoluted thing. But I was very much in the mindset of like, listen, he's my partner. He's very smart. I have to do whatever it takes. Let's do it. Let's put all the company resources towards getting this guy a residency he needs.
I know how it ends. So I'm like, oh, right?
He goes up to Canada. I start fundraising. And luckily, we've made enough money at this point so I can pay his salary, right? Just barely, but yes. I go out, I start fundraising. It takes over 2 years of fundraising. And I couldn't get anybody to say yes. But it was really critical, at least at a certain point, I kind of realized this guy needs to be more than just a partner. He needs to be a co-founder, because that's what the VCs want to see. They want to see a technical and a non-technical. Okay, so I make him an offer to come on as a co-founder. We continue to push through. The business is still kind of growing. At a certain point, I'm like, you know what? We got to make this happen. I go down to Silicon Valley. I'm there in Palo Alto, sleeping in a minivan for 2 months. I literally, that's the only way I could do it. Wake up in the morning, go to the gym, take a shower there, brush my teeth, and then go and pitch. And I was just pitching, and I was just getting, no. And at a certain, with every no, I actually got more and more determined. I was like, this is gonna happen. This has to happen. And at a certain point, finally, somebody gives me a yes. And they say, okay, you know what? We're gonna give this a shot. They offer me, our first term sheet for it was like $1 million in funding, but it was at a terrible valuation. It was like basically the company they were going to take a giant chunk of the company for this. But you know what? It's a start, and it's enough to get going. So I'm like, I call up my partner, and I'm like, hey man, we did it. We got the term sheet. This is it. And for context, his residency had finally come in like a week before. And so I'm like, we're going to do this. We got your residency. We got the funding. We're about to scale this company. We're about to really build this thing. And he's like, that's amazing. This is so great. 6 hours later, he calls me and he says, Ray, my mom's really sick. I'm going to have to step away and I want to spend more time with her. Good luck. Basically, just like that, and that was, and all of a sudden I'm stuck here, like in my minivan in Palo Alto,
By yourself.
like
Wow.
staring at my phone, just being like, what just happened? Like all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the day we get our funding, right after he gets his residency, he jumps town, and more importantly, the investors are not going to follow through with their funding offer, knowing that there's no team anymore. It's just me,
Right.
So I give myself like about 2 hours to panic, and then, I kind of get into this mindset of resolved and just say, okay, you know what, screw it. Like we're going to find a solution. So I go back to the investors and I tell them, guys, listen, this is what happened. I know this is not ideal. This is a terrible situation, but I want you to actually take this as an opportunity to vet me as a founder and see how I handle a crisis, right? Give me 30 days. I'm going to come back to you in 30 days. If you like what you see in 30 days, I'd like you to please reconsider, continuing with the offer. And they're like, okay, show us what you got. So I go on a crazy crusade, like I fly to Boston, to New York, to Miami, to SF, to to Washington, all in this rush to try and, I go to basically every co-founder matching event I could find, like just trying to find people. Within 2 weeks, I find this guy who seems like a perfect match. He'd built and sold a company previously. He was much more experienced than the previous guy.
Mm-hmm.
Had a lot of like corporate experience too. I'm like, this is my guy. And we agree on salary and equity split, and, and he's ready to come on. So I go back to, and for the next 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks it took me to find him. The next 2 weeks after that was a process of me basically working with him to try and get the code figured out and to move it forward and get started. And during this 2 weeks that we're working on the code and kind of figuring out what the next steps are, he takes me aside and he's like, Ray, the code is really bad. Like, this is like very low quality stuff, like this explains why the system keeps crashing and we have so many bugs, and like this is really like it's built like 2010, like a 2010 website, so I'm like, okay, hey, well, what's the plan? How do we fix it? So we built together a plan. We're like, okay, first we change out this section, then we use this language for this, and we really map out like a full 6-month strategy to get everything going and scaling. And we come back to the investors, and they're obviously very pleased and very impressed that we could turn it around so quickly. And by the way, at this point, the company's doing great. It's relatively speaking, more than $1 million in revenue, profitable, growing. Not at all a bad start.
And you didn't have to pay
So-
the $13,000 anymore.
Well, I had to pay more because we negotiated his salary plus equity. So
The old guy, the first guy. Oh, the new guy.
the new guy, yeah. Of
Oh,
course.
okay.
Yeah, and there was a much higher salary. So,
Okay.
but concomitant with his experience and capabilities, I was already, and this is in addition to a very large chunk of equity. So we come back, the investors are impressed. They're like, okay, here's the term sheet. Let's continue. We go out and celebrate that night, and this new guy, like we're having a great evening. Everything's going really well. End of the night comes around, and the guy pulls me aside and he says, hey, we have to talk. I'm like, okay, what's going on?
This
He's
is
like,
the new guy?
this is the new guy,
Oh, God.
and he says, we have to talk. And sure, what's going on? And he goes, well, I've been looking at the code and it's really, really bad. I'm like, yeah, we know, like we've been talking about it nonstop for the last 2 weeks. We have a plan. Everything's like, no, it's really, really bad. Okay. It's so bad we basically have to start from scratch. I'm like, oh, well, what do you mean? Like the plane's already in the air, man. You don't shut off the engines mid-flight, like, listen, we'll fix up the things as we go along and don't worry, like it'll be okay. He's like, no, it's so bad. We basically have to start from scratch. I'm like, look, man, what are you trying to say? He's like, well, the way I see it, because the code is so bad and we have to really rewrite it from scratch, I'm kind of viewing this as this is basically like a whole new company, right? I'm like, no. He's like, well, because it's a whole new company, this is only going to work if, if we get 50-50 on ownership. I'm like, 50-50? This company is 4 years old, we're more than $1 million in revenue. We have customers. We have returning customers. We have, like, what are you talking about? This is not a new company, Yeah, but this is the only way it's going to work. And then I realized that basically what he was doing is he was waiting until we get that term sheet again from the investors, so that he knew that if he walks away, and
he gets half the money.
Well, no, if he walks away, the investment falls apart.
Oh.
If he stays on, he gets half the company, right? So it puts me in this position where he knew that he could leverage me and to try and we had already agreed on the terms and his earnings and his ownership and everything, but he wanted half of it. And, at this point, I had really felt that I'd been betrayed twice,
Yeah.
Two things became really clear, like
major.
For anyone who's not super familiar with, equity or ownership in companies and all this kind of stuff. Here's two things that you just got to know, right? Number one, if anybody pulls something like that on you, they shouldn't be anywhere near any ownership in your company because you can't trust that person ever. It just means that the next time that there's a crisis like this one, they're going to stab you in the back for their sake too. Like this is not a one-time thing. You can't allow something like that to happen. And the second part of it, which is even more like, just to make the math clear for everyone, when an investor comes and offers you money, they want to buy a part of your company for a certain amount. So in this case, the investors were willing to give me $1 million for a certain chunk of equity in the company, right? What do you think that those investors are going to feel about their potential investment if they see that I had just given away half the company for free, right? Are they going to feel like they're buying it at the right price? Or are they going to go, wait a second, this company is actually worthless. You're literally giving away for free. Why would I pay money? Why would I give you money in order to own a piece of it? And that was just such a foolish move on his part. Anyway, like this is all very dramatic and very kind of ups and downs and roller coaster. But at that moment, I kind of realized the most important takeaway was that at this point, I'd already built something, and I kept kind of putting the cart in front of the horse. For 2 years, I was chasing investors and trying to convince them, that I was going to build something useful and that it was going to be a good company. And in order to convince them, I wanted to have these people that would be impressive to them and, have these co-founders and all this stuff. But I was putting the cart in front of the horse, I wanted to convince people I could build a good company when I could just building a good company, right? And that's when the entire perspective shifted. I realized, I told the guy, go home, you have no place here. I'm going to focus on building this company and bring on employees that are good people that I want to work with, not try to convince somebody to come on as a partner anymore, not try and convince investors. Let's just do it, the old fashioned way. And at that point, the lesson here is really building a company. It's like starting a family, like when you're thinking about starting a family, you really should put a lot of thought and energy into who is going to raise your kids with you. Who's my husband or wife going to be? What kind of style should we do? What's our parenting style? But when the kid is already 17 years old and he has a job and a car, that's not the time to start bringing in a stepfather. Like the guy it's already out.
Do you think maybe building it for these investors helped you build it with some urgency, where, I mean, I'm not saying you wouldn't have if you weren't going down that path, but maybe that helped you get it going to the
I
point of,
actually
hey,
think
I already built it, like you
you
didn't need
know
them anymore.
investors care a lot less about where the company is right now than they care about where it's going to be in 10 years,
Yeah.
or 5 years in fact.
Yeah.
And I actually think the reverse happened. Like
Oh,
I got so lucky.
all right. Never
I got-
mind that theory.
no, it's a great thought. I mean, I love the way you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's like so positive. But
Yeah.
what actually happened, my real blessing was that I didn't get investment, because
Yeah.
a lot of what investors do is they want a return on their investment. They gave you money, they want to see that it is worth
Right.
more very, very fast. That's the key point. Speed,
Right.
it matters to
Right.
them a lot. They're trying to go 100, 1,000x on their investment. So
Right.
a lot of what venture capital, VC capital, is looking for is go really, really quickly, break whatever you need to break, and scale as fast as you can.
Wow.
Well, that might work for some software B2B SaaS type company. We focus on scaling, people are going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And that's what we didn't want. And so we actually got so lucky, because being forced to build it very slowly meant that we had to confront those issues on how do we make it safe? How do we make it sustainable? How do we make it profitable very, very early? And that's why so many other companies in the mobility space, when they got the funding that they wanted, they scaled huge. They went really big, really fast to make their investors happy. And then guess what? They get to their pinnacle, and their unit economics are all upside down. Every customer is losing them money. They have liability situations that they can't get out of. They've got lawsuits, and a lot of those companies ended up collapsing. So to me, it was a blessing in disguise. Yeah.
And how did you make it safe?
Well, the main point on how to make sharing cars safe, first you have to contend with the reality that, like, you just can't control people.
Okay.
You just can't. People, if they want to do harm, they will. But most people exist on a spectrum of whether or not they'll do the right thing or the wrong thing. Very strongly depends on how easy it is for them to do the right thing or the wrong thing. If you make it have a lot of friction to abuse the process, abuse the car, and you just make it painful for them to do that, like inconvenient, they're just much less likely to do it. Whereas
So how did
making
you do that? Like, did you make them take out an expensive policy? Like, how did you actually make it painful for them to now
Sure.
damage it? Yeah.
So it's a huge process. I mean, we could spend an entire hour talking about
Yeah.
all the different things that we do, but it's like a Swiss cheese model, right? So
Yeah.
number one is selecting the right customers. We end up having to say no to a good chunk of people who want to rent with us, because
Oh.
the first part of it is just making sure, hey, this person has a clear history of abusing other people's property. It's not a good, this is not good. Right? We don't want to
Okay.
be in that space. So the first part is vetting people. That they're
Did you
safe to
look
trust.
into their records, or it was their honor system? I know I'm
Yeah.
getting
So
weeds,
public
but-
information on being
Okay.
able to see,
Cool.
hey, this person has a history of running through red lights. Unfortunately, that's not
Okay.
not safe to put you in someone else's car. So there's first is selecting the renter.
Yeah.
And we actually do a ton of proprietary stuff that I'm not going to get into, because that's our
Yeah. That's
proprietary
fine.
stuff.
So it wasn't even just the car itself; it was who you were
Yeah.
letting drive it.
But then
Yeah.
once you're talking about getting into the car, it's providing access at the right time. We have a whole education process that everybody needs to follow before they get into the car, right? So they actually have to go through and learn, what can I do in this car? What can I not do in this car? How to use this car. And then before we actually grant them the digital key in their phone, they have to pass a test. They have to repeat back to us everything that they know that they can and can't do, and repeat back to us what the punishment is if they don't do it. In this case,
Wow.
typically losing the deposit or potential legal and criminal things. So a lot of it is just keeping it top of mind and making sure people are highly educated on what goes on, what doesn't go on, making it so that it's just very hard to, we tie the access of the car to the person. So everything we do is on a digital key basis. So for example, Hilary, you could rent my car. You seem like a very nice, sweet lady, but maybe you've got this crazy, nephew of yours, and he's out there, robbing banks, and you're just like, oh, but I love him, so you give him the car, and now he's out there robbing banks with the car. Well, it becomes really, really hard to do that when there isn't a physical key, right? It's you actually have to pass him through our process in order for him to be able to drive.
Wow.
So all these little elements that, when stacked upon each other, add up to make it so that at this stage in our business, we have about a third of the average accident rate in the car rental market. A third.
Wow.
Which is incredible. And that means that all of our partners that are renting their cars out through us just have a lot more trust and security, knowing they can count on us to do the best to keep their cars safe.
Yeah. Now, okay. So I'm assuming you finally found technical guys who could develop all this, right? Because this doesn't happen by accident. So after you had the blessing and you didn't get the investors, you did find people to work with that you love and trust and all that. And you've obviously become very successful. How many years have you been in business now?
This is now our 8th year, moving into our 9th.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a dinosaur in terms of startup terms. For most startups, they grow really fast and then they sell or they exit.
Yeah. That's amazing. From a guy doing research on dementia or Alzheimer's to this, but you love it, right? You're happy that this worked out.
Couldn't be happier. Yeah. Okay. I really feel like this is where we're supposed to be. And there's in addition to it being a great company with really teammates that I'm blessed to work with every day. The company, by its very design, does a lot of good. Like every shared car on the road is the equivalent of 5 private cars in terms of how much space they take up and how much utilization they get compared to a private vehicle.
Wow.
Just based on the numbers of miles driven on electric batteries instead of gas, we've saved almost 20 million pounds of CO2. All of these things add up to something that we can be proud of as more than just, oh, this is a great place to work and something fun.
Oh, and what's the name of the company in case people want to look you up?
Of course, Eon, E-O-N.
E-O-N. Okay, great. And what would you like to say in the last few minutes? Like, what would you want to leave people with? I know you have a message for them. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that the main arc of my story is just that a lot of life is about luck. Things happen. 50% of what happens to you in life is completely outside of your control, and you have to accept and appreciate that. But another element that I think so few people really retain is that the ability to persevere and to see things that happen to you that are bad things, failures, and to be able to see those not as judgments against you by the universe, but as just things that happen to you and just things to move past and just another chapter in your life story. I think if you can take on that vision of your life, you'll start to realize that sometimes those really, really dark and hard moments are the ones that are your blessings. When I failed to get that funding again, and when I was, left in the cold by my co-founders again, those were today the most pivotal and positive things that could have happened to my company, my work, my business, my personal life. That was the biggest blessing in disguise. And so much of what happens in our life is a blessing in disguise. And I think that if you're just able to maintain that vision when things go wrong, you're going to find that your life is much more successful, much more grateful, gracious, and worth living. So that would be my message.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for
Well,
not
thank
giving
you.
up. Yeah, thank you for all of the work you did. And I'm sorry about the Alzheimer's research that didn't get out. But you know what?
You know what's
This is where you're
insane?
supposed to be. And
Yeah,
maybe
I've
we
got
could
good news
leak
for you
it.
on that front too.
Yeah, what?
No, I've got amazing news for you on that front too. A few years ago, I was at a startup accelerator back in Boston, and this where they get all these startups together to talk about their companies, and there was this European company that had come over. I forget which country they were from, but they were there, and they were working on an early detection of Alzheimer's based on serial reaction time tests.
Yay.
Whether they had built it out themselves independently, whether they got access to the research, they did it. I was sitting there. I was like, this is insane. I was working on this 3 years ago, and here you guys are actually out there building it. So,
well, and maybe
just another thing to be grateful for.
Yeah, and maybe what you did somehow made that happen. Maybe they
It's
read
possible.
your paper.
I don't know if they managed. Maybe it's totally
Maybe they read the
possible.
paper or heard you speak. Yeah, let's say that. Okay, good. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you
was
so
awesome.
much.
Thank you,
And,
Hilary. No, it was so fun. So great talking to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode. I started getting real with Hilary when I discovered that I was a people-pleasing, pleasant phony and wanted to be more of my real self. We can grow together if you will like the show, subscribe to my channel, and share this episode with your friends and family so that we can have a world that's more real.